One. Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we got Jake Olson on the podcast. You may or may not have heard about this young gentleman. He's doing amazing things. He's a 23-year-old Cali-born guy that's entrepreneur, former student athlete, all-around great guy. He went to USC, a graduate of USC. Despite some unfortunate and adversity, he's confronted it head on, full steam ahead. He's done amazing things, broke a lot of records, changed a lot of lives, and I'm excited for you guys to listen to his story, his experiences, and his insights. So let's welcome Jake in. Jake, how you doing today?
Hey, Moby, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm doing great.
No, it's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time. I know you're a busy guy. So for the people that may not know you, I'm surprised. I feel like there's not a lot of people that don't know you, but give us some context.
Yeah, so Cliff notes that I know we'll get kind of into a lot of this, so I'll make it brief and we can expand as the questions keep coming and stuff. But I was born in March of 1997. Like you said, I'm 23 years old. Gonna be turning 24 next month. So that's I'm getting old, man. I don't know how I feel about that. And I'm sure probably a lot of your listeners are like, man, 24 is not old, but you know how it goes. But at 8 months old, I was diagnosed with a rare form of eye cancer called retinoblastoma, and they found it in both my eyes. And unfortunately, when they did find it, they kind of found it late. So the cancer had progressed to a point in my left eye anyways, where we really couldn't even treat it. The fear was the cancer can move from the retina where it exists through the optic nerve into the brain. And then from there, it's virtually unstoppable. And so what happens is when you can't treat the cancer, the last option, which does remove the cancer, it does cure you of the cancer, but it's the last option, and you'll see why, is the removal of the eye. So you're forfeiting your eyesight, but you're also, saving your life. And so they did have to remove my left eye at the age of, just about 1 year old. And, it was just a tough situation on that eye. However, I was able to treat the cancer in my right eye. It was only about half as bad. And so we were able to treat my right eye. And sure enough, that cancer did go away, which was really awesome. And it stayed away for a couple of years. And then unfortunately, around the age of 4 or 5, that just an annual checkup should have been probably cleared, given the statistics about how long, the cancer stays away, that you should be clear. But sure enough, it did come back. And unfortunately, this started a real vicious cycle of trying to treat this cancer, it going away, coming back a year later, trying to treat it again, going away for 18 months, 2 years, coming back. And, we did throw everything we could at it, plenty of chemo, radiation, laser treatment, cryotherapy, experimental treatment, which was intraarterial chemotherapy at the time. And eventually at the age of 12, and now we're in 2009, at the age of 12, this cancer came back for the 8th time in my right eye. And unfortunately, I had maxed out on radiation. We couldn't use that anymore. And chemo really wasn't going to cure the cancer. It could keep it at bay, but it was not going to cure it anymore. And everything else we kind of exhausted. And so just like when I was a little baby, the removal of my eye now was necessary in order for that cancer not to spread and take my life. And so we did have to remove my right eye at the age of 12, which was obviously devastating on a lot of fronts. One, just given how hard we did fight to cure this thing, beat this cancer, to be told at the end of all that fighting, I was going to have to lose my eyesight anyways, was real tough. And, it was frustrating given how much we put in. It was also scary, how I was 12 years old, to think about my entire life I had in front of me. I was only in 7th grade. I had all of high school in front of me, all of college in front of me. I was going to be growing up into the man I was going to become. I had a whole career in front of me. Like, I had so much in front of me, to think that now I'm going to have to relearn how to live life without seeing and all the things I love. How am I going to continue to do those things? How am I going to continue to live a normal life and be a normal student, and grow up again and be successful without sight? It was very uncertain, and for that reason it was scary. And so that was a dark time, but I had a loving family and a loving support system around me that was there for me. I had a strong faith. and God that he was going to continue to be faithful to me, and just pushed ahead. Fighting cancer 8 times for 12 years was made a fighting spirit inside of me. And I was going to continue to fight through blindness, even though it was going to be my toughest battle thus far. I knew that, with the right mindset and the right people around me, I could get through it. And so that's what I did. That's the mindset I took. And, again, we're kind of getting these questions, but, went to high school, started playing sports, including golf and football. Eventually went to USC to play football as a long snapper. Was on USC's team for 4 years, and graduated in 2019. And then now I'm rocking a business, rocking a couple other things. Got a lot going, and so it's been a fun ride. And like I said, I know we'll get into it, so I'm not going to spoil too much, but that's kind of my story.
No, and it's a great story. Just one quick question. So you mentioned cryotherapy. I know a lot of athletes use that for recovery. How did you use it, for your eye treatment?
Yeah, so it's basically very similar in the sense of your cryo, meaning cold, using freezing the tumor. So basically they would kind of go in out, they put me under surgery, under anesthesia, and they go in there and try to kind of freeze that tumor and use it as a way to kind of control that. And it did work. It worked a couple of times, but the unfortunate thing, when I was a little kid, I almost I use this as an example, but in the Incredibles, the first Incredibles, the robot, it learns as you fight it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the same thing with a lot of cancers. You use something, and then if it survives and grows back, it becomes almost immune. It kind of has a shield. So that was the problem. After a while, that cryotherapy wasn't going to do anything, along with the other treatments.
I see. And I imagine at 12 years old, having those discussions of having to, make that decision to, not move forward with radiation. What was that like, making grown man decisions at 12 years old?
Yeah. I mean, it was tough. It made me grow up really quick, just having to deal with all that, up to that point. But yeah, no, I mean, it was a tough decision. It was laid out to me as clearly as it could be, in that, Jake, we can't treat this cancer anymore. There's little chance we're going to cure it. We could do stuff that is going to keep it at bay. But again, you're rolling the dice every day you do that, because as soon as this thing spreads, as soon as this cancer gets out of the containment of your retina, it's over. There's no stopping it. And so, the question is, how much are you willing to kind of gamble? And to be honest, I thought there was more to life than just eyesight. And I was right, but it wasn't worth gambling with that.
No, I feel you. And then you decided, you move on with your life. You're doing great things. You choose the 2 hardest sports. You said golf and football. Okay, so run this back by me, because how were you able to how?
So with golf, because golf was kind of the first thing I continued to. Well, I guess football as well, but you'll see what I mean. Golf, I was a big golfer growing up, and loved the game. Loved to play with my dad. We go out there on holidays and stuff and play together. And when I went blind, there already kind of was a system in place. There is a U.S. Blind Golf Association, so I know there was other blind people doing it. So it kind of gave me the hope that I could be like them. I could do it as well. And so I went out there and with my dad, kind of figured out how to, one, line me up, right? Just to kind of get that system down. And then 2, how to now swing and make contact with the ball every time. And that was, very difficult. Obviously, I was a decent golfer, and then I lost my sight, and I was, back to square one. And so just a lot of practice went into it, and started, playing more consistently in the sense of hitting the ball at least. And then eventually, I could maybe finish a hole. Maybe I could finish 3 holes, stitch some shots together. Finish a 9, play 18, whatever. But eventually, I started, taking lessons and figuring out my swing and making solid contact, letting kind of my nervous system and motor system kind of really learn and develop. And eventually I became a better golfer than I ever was without sight. And that's how I am today, man. I've got about a 10 handicap, in the fall of 2019. Unfortunately, this was the last tournament that was played from the U.S. Blind Golf Association, but I won the U.S. Blind Nationals in Vegas. And so, yeah, man, I can definitely go out there, shoot in the 80s, sometimes shoot in the high 70s if it's a really good day. But yeah, man, I can strike the ball. I'm an athlete and love to kind of use that athleticism on the golf course. And it's been a tough ride. Definitely one of the more mentally tough kind of disciplinary things I've ever done, because golf is not an easy game, like you pointed out, and it'll literally drive you to drink. But
I'm for one shocked because, you said you have a 10 handicap. I don't even know my handicap score because I'm that bad. And for you, to use the motor skills that you have, this our bodies are just so amazing.
Yeah.
When we challenge ourselves to be able to do amazing things, whether it's eyesight that we lost, or our hearing, or any other other disabilities. Our
Yeah,
mind.
well, I mean, and
Go
it
ahead.
goes beyond that. I mean, you sit there and you watch a baseball game. How
Yeah.
are they hitting this ball that's coming out of them 100 miles per hour with movement? Or
Facts.
like soccer, like any sport. Even if someone's fully able with eyesight and everything else, like, you're still using your body at such a high level, and using, again, your motor skills and your neuromuscular system, everything that kind of goes along with that, to at such a high a high intensity, and using it such at an elite level that, I mean, I know it's kind of crazy to think a blind person can hit a golf ball consistently really well, but I mean, it's just a different way of using your body. It's no different than, like I said, elite athletes using their bodies to do the incredible things they do as well.
No, it's true. And I mean, you're an elite athlete. You went to USC. How many people can go to USC to play football? So talk about that journey. What made you decide USC? I imagine you grew up a USC fan. I'm kind of bitter because I went to UCLA, but talk about that journey.
I knew it would come up.
I couldn't
eventually
hold
it
it.
had
I
to come
couldn't
up.
hold it. I was trying to hold it, but I couldn't.
Well, so football, as you mentioned, kind of your last question, was the other sport I chose, and that was, I grew up with a huge passion for football. I grew up a huge USC fan, as you kind of alluded to, and once I went blind, I was playing middle school flag football when I went blind, and continued even to play it as a center, just snapping the ball back there, kind of using, again, that motor skill, just to kind of learn what it felt like to snap a ball back there, and just would kind of lay my body out and block whoever's in front of me. Kind of deal. No real scheme to it. But when I went to high school, I went to Orange Lutheran, which was in the Trinity League here in Southern California, which is one of the best leagues in all of the country, from kind of a athletic standpoint, especially football. A lot of NFL guys come from the Trinity League, and so
You guys play like Modern Day and
St. John Bosco,
Yeah.
Santa Margarita, all this good stuff. So we, my point in that was, I didn't play high school football my freshman or sophomore year. I thought, this is now tackle football at its highest level, and there was just no way I would be able to be a center, calling out, different blocking schemes and having to pull and everything else that kind of comes with that. So I did not play football, but halfway through high school, I was like, you know what, man, like, I love football so much that I am not going to look back on high school and say, I regret not playing football. I was going to somehow be involved. I didn't know really how. Obviously, I wasn't going to fool myself and say, hey, I could, go out there and be a quarterback or a receiver or whatever. But there, if nothing else, I could just, be some type of manager or something. But fortunately, a couple of my friends were like, hey man, there's this, position called long snapping that, you are kind of protected by the game. There's not going to be a lot of people that are going to be hitting running a route over the middle or something. And so all you have to do is consistently snap a ball, which, back to my flag football days, I knew I could do as a center. So I'm like, okay, how much harder could this be? Went out there. Well, it turns out it's a lot harder. It definitely is another skill set, and it's more of an art than anything. But how to really learn how to do it, at first, like, and I had no idea what I was doing. These coaches were just like, okay, this blind kid's never ever going to be able to be, any type of contributor on this team. But there was one coach who was like, man, if you really want to learn, like, we're gonna have to practice every day during the summer. Like, we, there's a definitely a way you have to do it, and let me teach you that way and see how far we can go.
No.
So for every day, pretty much that summer, going to my junior year of high school, went out there, practice hour and a half, learned the way you have to do it, got consistently a little better, literally till I showed up fall camp, and turns out I was the best long snapper on the team. And so we ended up going through fall camp and had a scrimmage and fought for my job, and sure enough got the starting job and kept it all my junior and senior years of high school. And I was out there for every PAT and field goal. I did not do punt, just because again there's a little extra part of a punt where you have to run down and tackle someone, but which, hey, Moby, trust me, if they would have let me, I would have done it. But
I can only imagine your will to win is is infectious. So I imagine like they had to stop you from considering doing it, and not you.
No, for sure, man. I was like, no, I could just like grab onto the guy's shoulder next to me, and like you could just be like, like, all right, here we go, like hit now.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay.
But anyway, so then after my senior year of playing, I was up at SC, and Coach Sarkeesian, who was the head coach at the time, kind of, had seen me play, just because, again, he's recruiting a lot out of the Trinity League, and pretty much asked if I was coming to USC. And I said, yes. He goes, well, if you're coming, there should be no reason why you couldn't snap on the football team. And I said, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that was on the table. And once it was, I knew there was no other college experience for me. And, got in, walked on the team, was able to be on the team all 4 years, practiced hard my freshman, sophomore year, got my body right in the weight room. And sure enough, by my junior year, coaches felt like I deserved an opportunity to go out there and snap. And so that was the first time I snapped, and got a couple of other opportunities the rest of my college career. And it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, and talk about that, because that's when I first heard about, you and your story and your experiences. Talk about, once you got onto USC, how, I don't want to say how everything changed, but obviously you were kind of in the spotlight.
Yeah. Kind of back when I was 12 years old, losing my eyesight, USC, Pete Carroll kind of, a lot of people saw that little story, that they did on College Game Day of me and, as a little kid being brought under the wings of this, college football team, and helping me through this really dark time. And so I kind of grew up after that point as more just more than a USC fan, but, part of the USC family. And that was really awesome. And when I became a high school athlete, I kind of had to almost sever those ties to an extent, because, of all the recruiting limitations and everything, no longer did I have any kind of special connection with USC more than any other recruit. So when I went to USC, finally when I got there, it was kind of this reconnecting with this, university and this program that I loved and did so much for me. And, by then there was, a lot of turnover in the coaching staff and athletic department that, a few people knew me from 12, but, that was kind of the coolest part. Once I did snap and my story blew up, people were like, oh my gosh, like this is that same, little kid, 12-year-old that we followed, 8 years ago on that College Game Day piece. And, that's kind of my favorite thing about my story, is that I think so many people, especially Trojan Nation, but I mean, all over kind of the country and those who follow sports and stuff, they say, I followed you since you were a little kid. And because of that, I think so many people kind of grew up with me and followed me, in the sense that they felt like they were part of the journey. They felt like they were part of that support system that got me through, again, that really tough time at the age of 12. And eventually were there, seeing me snap in the Coliseum, which was kind of, that pinnacle moment of that full circle coming back and snapping for that team that was there for me at the age of 12. And so that's something that really, I think, brought my story more than even just, hey, there's this cool blind football player snapping in college. Like, that's cool within itself. But what I really think, touched people's hearts and really kind of got them even more so involved and excited, was just the fact, again, that they were emotionally invested since the age of 12 with me. And to see that kind of finally take place was just, everyone felt a part of it.
No, that's what I love about you. You allow people to join the journey. Obviously you never would have thought that would have came, or maybe you did on a personal level, but, from that College Game Day experience, ultimately leading you back to USC, returning to the family, and then having those ties come back together, almost like a circle of life moment. you can't write a better script, and
No,
it's
no,
really amazing.
no, you really can, man. It's and afterwards, I someone asked me almost a question similar in the sense that, did it feel full circle? Did it feel like everything kind of came together? And my answer, which actually made the head of the newspapers, which I just kind of slipped out of my mouth, but I said, man, if you can't see how God works things out, I think you're the blind one. And I really meant that. Just how you couldn't write a more perfect script. I don't think that was by accident at all. I don't think life somehow rolls out, chances by that. I think that was absolutely kind of orchestrated.
No, that's what it's all about. So, talk about your time at USC. Obviously, you play. You mentioned the coaching changes there. I mean, USC is a storied program, always going to be
Yeah.
top. UCLA got to take some notes from y'all football program, but that's for another podcast. We're not going to get into
No,
that.
I thought I was going to get out of there, man. I thought I was going to be one of those guys who could, say, hey, yeah, my time at SC, we never lost to UCLA, and we almost did it my senior year, though, man. You guys upset us, and it was like one of the most devastating moments of my college career. So thank you for that.
No worries. We had to make it rough a little bit, but you started this platform. You're an entrepreneur. You're doing speaking engagements. I've met your executive team. Talk about this whole experience in this company that you started.
Yeah, so I did graduate with majoring in business at USC, and so very fortunately, given my whole story, starting from just an early age and that college game day piece at the age of 12, like again, I kind of had been a little bit in the limelight, and people had known my story and they wanted to hear from me, and so I did start speaking at an early age, still do, and love it. So when I was going to college, I kind of graduated from my parents going with me to every speech. They both work. I was up at SC now. It was kind of unpractical for them to continue to travel with me and kind of manage me. So I was looking for someone who could do that. And very fortunately, one of my random suite mates in college was named Daniel, and he kind of grew up in the space of athletes, kind of growing around kind of the managerial side of them, and knew just how to kind of work the system. He knew kind of what you had to do, how to take care of your guy and be there. And so sure enough, took him to a speech, let him kind of control all the logistics of it. He traveled with me. It was down in San Diego, so it wasn't that far of a ride, but we went down there, and again, let him kind of orchestrate everything, see how he was, and he turned out to be great. And so he was my manager for from that point, still is to this day. And really, really lucky to have someone like him be my kind of right-hand man. But because of everything then that blew up after snapping in the Coliseum for the first time, all of a sudden he was like inundated with just so much. And he was kind of looking for a way that would make it easier for him to, one, most importantly, kind of filter out all the BS that was kind of coming in, and two, really kind of have a central way for people to contact me. Because I mean, I'm sure you've got this plenty of times, but people are like either sliding in whatever DM you have, or like coming through your friends, or like Facebook messaging your sister, or like just like weird things. And it's just like, man, like, can we just get a central way? If you want to contact me, just hey, come to this. Yeah. And so based on that, we started a company called Engage, and created kind of a digital platform which really allowed people to kind of have a profile in there, and again, let people submit requests. You can kind of use it as a shield. Again, if someone comes up and DMs me, hey man, like, could you come speak? Or hey man, could we do this? Yeah, why don't you go to Let's Engage and submit a request? So at least I know that person is legit. And if they're going to take the time to do that, I can get the details. I don't need to, be talking to some rando who may not, have the best intentions in mind or whatever. And so that's where it really started off. Now we've grown from that, and we're doing a lot of cool things with athletes, from sweepstakes to pop-up events, and helping kind of anyone with an experience that they want to offer to their fans, or whatever they want to do with fundraising for charity. But it's been a really cool ride, just to kind of, again, work with these athletes who, in our opinion, going into this kind of industry, the top tier, the A lists were obviously taken care of, but everyone below that was, playing second fiddle. And I felt like there should be kind of a more of an opportunity for those guys to still use the fans that they definitely still do have. You know, they're still very popular. They're still very much in demand. They're just not getting the time from the people that can make it work. So now we're the team, we're the platform that can make it work for you. So whatever you want to do, man, like we're there for you. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with it.
No, it's amazing. I just recently got on the platform. I think it's a great service in the sense of it just cuts out, like you said, all the back and forth. Like, all right, can you do this day? What do you talk about? No,
Yeah.
go to my platform and figure it out, and we can make it work.
Right. Exactly.
Talk about it from the, obviously you started with you as the main subject on the platform, but talk about building a business. A lot of athletes, a lot of student athletes, they have the skills to, get into the corporate space or build a business,
Yeah.
do entrepreneurship. Give you like your rundown.
Yeah. So, there's a couple things that I think have been really key to us building this platform and being successful. One, you got to be passionate about it, right? Like that's the number one thing. You got to be passionate about it. If you're going to take on a business venture, and you're not passionate about it, you are going to burn out faster than, if I was an astronomy major, I'd have some good example of a star, but like, just as you were in your sport, just how passionate you were about your sport. And so you could put in all those hours of work and you got fulfillment out of that. You were able to kind of go through the struggles that inevitably come when you're trying to be, an elite athlete at your sport. The same thing is with business, because there's going to be just as much adversity. Maybe it's not the same toll on, sore muscles and late practices and the anxiety that it comes, playing important games in front of crowds, but it's going to show up in a different way, in that it's going to be it's going to be tough and a struggle to try to get someone to email you back and try to get this through, and you have to go through all these different loopholes and push this button and have to follow up with this person. This person is not getting back to me. This person told me no, the rejection. Like, there's so much that you have to kind of push through that. Again, if you're not passionate about it, forget about it. So there's the first thing. Second thing is that you got to just continue to work at it. Again, just like your sport, the work ethic needs to be there. And that goes along with the passion, but the work ethic needs to be there. You got to be working your business day in and day out. It's always got to be on your mind. Everyone you meet, is an opportunity. Maybe they know someone, maybe they can be a part of something, like, you just always kind of have to be in that framework, which again is, I think, one of the reasons why so many people burn out, but it really does have to kind of be eat, sleep, drink that business. So that's the other thing. And then the third thing is just, hey, you're a student athlete or you're a professional athlete, you have connections, hopefully up to this point, you've been utilizing those connections, you've been building those connections, you're taking the time to shake hands and meet people, get people's information, you're not being a jerk and pretend like you're too cool for school. If you've done that, then now you have a whole network of people that are willing to help you. And I cannot tell you how many people, maybe for some odd reason, they just don't ask for help. Like, they don't ask for help for the people that are more than willing to help them in a way. So just take the time, say, hey man, I'm looking for a connection. Hey man, could you do that? And all they can say is no, right? Like, that's the worst thing that the person can say. So like, that's the big thing with what we did, is that we just, hey, we know this person, that person knows that person, and you just kind of go down the line and keep asking, hey, would you want to join this platform? It's no skin off your back. And to this day, man, I don't really know. Maybe there's been one or two people that have said no, but like, for the most part, people are just, yeah, like, let's try it out. Like, sure. People are helpful for the most part, man, especially like if you're not coming across to someone who's just trying to use them, you're just earnest and you can, people are smart enough. Most people are smart enough to kind of tell, what a person's intentions are. So if your intentions, man, I'm making this cool business, I want to help people, I'm really passionate about this thing, people are drawn to that. People are really, really drawn to kind of that attitude in life. They want to be a part of that. They can kind of see your drive. They can see your passion. That's contagious. And so those are kind of my 3 points, I think, that go a long way in building a business.
No, you hit the nail on the head, especially the last point, asking for help. I'm not sure if it's like an athlete thing, having a big ego or thinking like we know it all, but simply asking for help, people are more than willing to help you. So, having the humility to ask and, the curiosity and motivation to
Yeah,
want to learn, that's what it's all about.
it absolutely is, man. I mean, and like, again, I think maybe you hit on the head too, in the sense that it is kind of, it is a humbling thing, to ask for help and to kind of admit like, hey, I don't know where I'm going, or hey, I can't get there without this connection or with this help. Like, that is a humbling thing. But if you can get past that, there is a lot of people that are willing to help.
No, respect. And so let's talk about this because you guys have built a serious business. You guys have raised money from venture capital. Not a lot of, athlete entrepreneurs have done that. So talk about that process, what it's like, to do a pitch, figure out which VC that you're going to take money from, and like the calls that you have to do, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is raising money is one of the toughest things, because someone's forking up their hard-earned cash, and it's a constant learning process. Unfortunately, I can't even say it, there's a real book to it. There's a reason why, at least in Marshall, for USC, which is one of the top business schools, and I really don't know of a class or program like this. I mean, they don't really teach you a lot on this stuff, because there's not a rule book. There's not some book that's really fit for, because, dude, every investor is different. Every investor cares about different things. And so that's what kind of I would say is, like, you got to go in there and you got to be like a piece of clay. Like, you obviously have your business pitch, a lot about your business, you're passionate about it, you're energetic about it. Everyone cares about that, right? No matter what the investor, everyone cares about that. Besides that, some people are going to be really, they're going to care a lot about the numbers. They're going to want to hear the math. They're going to want to see, projections and what that looks like. Other people are only going to care about who you know. Are you involved with these people? Do you know this part of the industry? So there's so many different investors that care about so many different things, that you got to be a piece of clay in there, because you just got to mold. The questions they're asking is almost like kind of a secret language, where it's like, okay, what they're asking about is what they care about. So you have to internalize that really quickly. And now, okay, that person cares about this. And so let's now run down this road. And I have every kind of, like, this part of the deck, the pitch deck involves that. So let's like immediately turn to that. And let's spend the next hour talking about that. Because obviously this person really cares about this. And maybe he asks about other things here and there, but like, this person obviously cares about this. So I'm going to pitch this in the best way possible. Don't go in there thinking you got to pitch every single corner of the business as well as possible, because again, chances are that investor is going to care about maybe 25 or 30% of what that business, all those corners, and so just really kind of focus on the thing that single investor you're talking to really cares about.
No, I love that. It's almost, you got to be well versed and understand how to read a room and read the relationship of who you're pitching to. Like you said, every investor
Mm-hmm.
has their own strategy, and every investor has their own wants. So if you're raising money, specifically as an athlete entrepreneur, you gotta. It's almost like a coach. Coaches have different
Mm-hmm.
styles. You gotta do things differently depending on who your coach is. Um, so with that being said, let's engage.com. Give us the rundown of why every athlete should be on the platform, and maybe a case study. I spoke with Daniel and Matt and some others on your team about a particular one you guys did with Terrell Owens, and I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, man. So, the pitch that we tell the athletes is, you're and your close manager or whoever you have put your faith into up to this point. Um, we want to put you in the captain's seat. We want to make you feel like you're, responsible, and you're, have the, overall control of what's coming to you. And so that's why, when someone submits a request, it goes to you, it goes to you and again, your manager. If you don't have one, then just you. And again, we're kind of the shield there, where it's, we're the platform that shields you from just, direct contact with that person, from the standpoint of like them DMing you on Instagram or Twitter. But, so you do have that kind of ability to just click decline if you don't like the request, and, there's no sweat or tears to it. So we like giving, again, the control stick to the person. So, we're not fielding the requests And then depending if we think it's right, we're going to bring it to you. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, in these agencies, these big agencies, there's a lot of stuff that comes in that, hey, we want this person or we want that person. And to be honest with you, it's dishonest. And what ends up happening is either agencies are going to list people they don't have just to get that request. So maybe there's someone who lists you that you don't even know. And so they're just fielding your request and are going to now just say, hey, we don't know this person. We're just going to pretend like we're asking them. And then 2 weeks out, we're going to say, hey, yeah, this person's not available, but we have these other 3 people we represent that are available. Well, no, you just lost that gig because you never knew it even came to you, because someone else is saying they represent you. So unfortunately, that's it. Also, we've talked to people that have been burned by the system, and that this person came to the agency that was representing you, and they offered, 20 grand for you to come to this thing. And by the time it got to you, maybe there's, they went to someone who then brought to your agency or whatever. But by the time it got to you, that deal is only worth $10,000. Where did that $10,000 go? I have no idea. But the point is, it's not in your pocket, which it should be. So again, that's why we kind of created this thing that's very transparent. It's directly to the talent. We charge on top. So again, someone wants to pay $10,000 for you, they're going to have to pay $11,500. So that $1,500's come to us, you're getting your full $10,000. And again, that's really cool. Also, man, we just love building relationships with our talent. We really want to know what you're passionate about. Again, back to the kind of that passion, what you're excited about, what gets you going. Some people don't like talking in front of crowds for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I totally get that. Some people love cooking. Some people love playing or love going bowling. Some people love race cars. There's so many people that have different interests. Let's monetize that. Hey, if your fans want to come and go on a race car track with you somewhere out in the desert, let's make that a experience, some type of sweepstakes where people are paying $5, a ticket where they can maybe win that prize with you. Whatever the case is, like we really want to kind of be engaging with what you're passionate about with your fans. Cause guess what, man, that's what sells, that's what really sells, fans, especially on social media, they can kind of tell, hey, this doesn't seem authentic. This doesn't seem legit. But when you really get someone who is passionate about what they're wanting to do, that they find it fun. Also, that athlete's excited to post about it. That athlete's excited to get their fans involved because they know they're going to have a blast doing it. And that was kind of back to what you said about Terrell Owens driving bird scooters around LA, man. He just wanted to kind of have a fun time riding bird scooters because for some reason he loves riding bird scooters around. And why not invite 10 people where they could just follow him? He can give a tour of his favorite places to go in LA. He can ride down the beach. And he had a blast doing it. It wasn't this like, oh, Terrell, guess what, man? Next week, we're going to have to force you to ride a bird scooter. Trust me, this is going to be good. No, he was so excited to do it. We couldn't stop him if we tried. So that's the stuff that really we like to do with our athletes, and is a little different than, again, these different agencies forcing you to do something, forcing things upon you. Hey, man, you got to do this because of X, Y, or Z.
No, I love it. I love it. So talk about it. You talk about, whether an athlete likes public speaking, but, for athletes, talk about how lucrative, public speaking is if it's done right, and some principles to how to win over a crowd, how to kind of, tell your story in an authentic way.
Yeah, man, it's very lucrative. There's a lot of businesses out there who, I always say, if you think what the most important part of a business is, what a business's greatest asset is, it's their employees, right? Like it's who's working for them, who's pushing those buttons and making those connections and making the business run every day. And because of that, a business wants to make sure those employees, their biggest asset, is taken care of, is motivated, is encouraged, has the right mindset. And because of that, they bring in people who they believe are going to be able to do that. And so that's where I think the biggest thing in public speaking is just keeping that in mind. Why are they bringing you in? Well, they're bringing you in because they want you to help enhance their biggest asset. And so, man, it's just all about telling your story, being not overly vulnerable, obviously, but, just telling you how you felt, in the moment, how you feel, in those stories you're telling. And then what kind of mindset, what took you to that next level? What made you, tick? Was it something that happened to you? Was it just you have this awesome, principle in life that you follow? Stuff like that, man. People are always looking to better themselves and to find kind of, a way to be motivated. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this world that just don't have a real solid compass that's pointing north. And if you are someone who, hey man, I think I found a way where that makes me run. Well, turns out there's going to be a couple people out there that are going to be very like-minded. And if they only knew what you knew, they're going to also run, and be successful. And so, just it's about helping people. It's about, again, helping that business. It's about, just, again, making yourself available and putting yourself out there, and sharing. If you have that in your heart, if you have that in your mind, and kind of go into it with that mindset, there's a lot of people that are going to want to hear from you, and it keeps growing. If you go up there on stage and have that in mind, guess what? Someone from that crowd is going to say, hey, I know this other person who's going to have a meeting next month, and they would love to kind of hear this story from you, and that's how it builds.
No, that's what it's all about. Like you said, that's how it builds, brick by brick. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. Not really, but from the business standpoint, you started a business as a student athlete. Did you know what you were doing, like from a money management perspective, like understanding, like you talked about assets, like expenses, profit, revenue, like P&L? How did it all work?
Yeah, I mean, so going to business school definitely kind of teaches you a little more about that, but it is about just, one, learning what those things are. Obviously, you gotta define those things and know what they are. But two, we are very fortunate to have people come on board that really were, well versed in that you could learn from. But business is, I think, gets a lot of fancy words and these buzzwords that come along with it, and like everything else. But again, to be successful in business, you got to make connections, because, again, we've seen, and I know these are at large scales, but we've seen what, Tesla has, I think, now 5 or 6 quarters that have been profitable, so they're getting more on track. But they lost a ton of money in the beginning with. A lot of these companies, these big companies, are getting so much money poured into it. Man, they're not focused on revenue at all. But guess what? They have market share. They have connections with their customers, with different organizations. They're plugged in, and so that's the biggest thing. You got to plug in. You got to plug in with people that are willing to help you. You got to plug in with people that are going to be your customers. You got to plug in with anyone who potentially is going to put money in you. So you just got to be plugged in and kind of in the industry that you're trying to go in. But two, back to kind of what you're saying about assets and revenue and losses and everything like that. Dude, you just got to put 2 and 2 together. You cannot just, blow money on, stupid stuff. Like you do have to just be smart about where you're spending that money, how you're spending that money. Be cognizant of the fact that money isn't growing on trees, that, you're not going to just have limitless amount of it. Just be smart about it. Like, just be smart about it. It's not rocket science. Just be responsible. Like, that's the biggest thing with like revenue and profit and everything else that comes with that. Like, be responsible. And look, if the business isn't going to work, it's not going to work. But the quickest way for it not to work is just to blow your money on everything,
Yep.
and then expect like somehow that's gonna, all of a sudden get a huge return. Like, most businesses don't work like that. Most businesses, you gotta take the time to put it in the oven, let it bake with those relationships, let it bake with those connections, be frugal with the money, and really see kind of those returns come out over the course of a year, 2, 3 years. And then at the end of that, look, after 3 or 4 years, man, it's not working, then okay, evolve, change. If you're really still passionate about it, find a way you can, pivot and make it work. If not, then you gave it a great run, and you learned a lot that you're going to be able to take to your next business adventure. But again, if you're just going to blow money in the first 6 months and never see that kind of those relationships work out or whatever, I mean, forget about it.
No, that's great advice. So obviously you know a lot of athletes. You are an athlete yourself. You went to USC. A lot of athletes go there to move on to the professional ranks. You talk about business school. What are some things like a class or personal finance lesson that you would love to be taught, whether it's at USC or for all student athletes to learn before heading to the next phase?
Like I said, man, it's I'm not in the business of just, hey, don't have any fun, don't enjoy what you do and the money you make. I think there's a lot to enjoy in life because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow, right?
That's true.
But at the same time, you do want to just be responsible and smart. And so I think one of the biggest things that you can do in life is just a budget, and have someone. It doesn't have to be a financial advisor necessarily. Well, there you go. I got a low battery and stop my video, but you want to budget, man. You want to figure out, hey, I'm going to be making this much money, and I want to save some money, and this is how much I want to save, and this is how much I want to spend, and this is how much I'm going to spend on this, and how much I'm going to allow myself to spend on that. And so it's, again, no one's saying you can't spend money on a vacation. No one's saying you can't spend money on the car. But let's figure out, if you are going to spend money on the car, well, then maybe you're not going to spend money over here. If you are going to spend money on a vacation, well, then maybe you're not going to spend money over here. So, dude, it's just about budgeting. It's about just making sure, again, you understand what things cost, how much money's coming in. There's so many people that just don't pay attention to that. And after a while, they're like, wait, I can't pay for this now. Why? Well, because, again, you just spent money all over here, and you didn't consider what you got to spend for over here now. And so my biggest thing with telling people is, like, just sit down, be responsible. No one's telling you can't spend money on the things you want. Maybe you can't spend money on everything you want, but let's figure out where you're going to do it. Budgeting is a huge deal. And then find someone who's going to keep you accountable. Find someone who's going to say, hey, let's, you said you weren't going to spend money on this. Like, let's not do this, man. Like, we can do that next year. So that's my biggest thing. Cause again, I've seen so many people just blow money like it's left and right. I'm like, man, like, what you do realize, like, one day you're going to need this.
No, that's great advice. And I love what you said about being accountable, having someone that can hold you accountable too. Cause sometimes you need that. It's like, yeah, I could work out on my own, but sometimes you need that trainer to hold you accountable. So whether it's in personal finance, you could do the same thing. Jake, before I let you go, you're doing amazing things. Really happy to have got to know you. Talk about the impact, you do in the community. You have a foundation, you're giving back, you're doing philanthropy work. You're a big advocate, for young kids that have gone through your journey. Talk about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I back to growing up, I was very blessed to be around a lot of people that, were blind, that had gone through losing their eyesight, that were there to comfort me. A lot of people that just had a lot of great mindsets that, gave me a framework of how I was going to live my life and continue to push forward. And so, I want to be the same. I want to be just the light that those people were for me. I want to be the light for the generation that's coming up. I feel like I owe that to them, just because, again, I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for the people that did it for me. And we're here on the earth together for a reason. We're not here to put each other down, to stop one another from achieving. We're here to mentor and help and to love. And so with my foundation, I started that. It's called Outside Faith. It was originally started, which we still do a lot in this work. We've kind of molded to some other stuff as well, but was to help raise money to buy technology, which is pretty expensive, just because, again, it's kind of high tech and not a lot of demand, just because there's not a ton of blind people out there. But buy technology for the kids who were totally capable of being in normal school, totally capable of learning, just needed the tools to do it. And those tools were expensive. So raising money to give other, visually impaired and blind kids the tools they needed to succeed in school, to go to high school and college, get a good education, to graduate and get a job. I've done a lot of cancer research, helping out, beat the very cancer that took my eyesight. We've made tremendous progress on that. I've done a lot of cool things with that. Just trying to motivate kids that, again, maybe life didn't give them the perfect hand. Maybe life didn't give them the best family life, or a ton of money in their family, or maybe they grew up with a disease and now have been set back because they're not completely able like other kids. But my message to them is, look, that does not have to stop you from living a meaningful and fulfilling life. That doesn't mean you got to forfeit on your hopes and dreams. Does it mean you may have to work harder? Absolutely. Does it mean you have to get there a different way? Maybe. But if you're really truly passionate about it, you love it, and you want to go do that, let's find a way. If there's a will, there's a way. And so if you find that will inside you, then let's find that way, and let's find the people around you that are going to help you find that way. Because again, once again, we're here to help each other. We're here to provide each other with that aid. And a lot of times, I'll be the first to admit it, I would be nowhere where I am today if, one, I didn't take that mindset that I wanted to be here, but two, if there weren't those support system around me, if there wasn't that support system around me that got me here. So that's kind of my message to those kids out there, and kind of what I'm trying to help. Those people realize who we're unfortunately living in a time like right now that life isn't perfect, life is hard, but let's find a way to get through it.
That's what it's all about. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story. I learned a lot. For the people that want to connect with you more, how can they find you? Shameless plug, get it done.
Well, you can follow me on social media at Jake Olson 61. Or just search Jake Olson, you'll find me. But also, again, if you just want to go to letsengage.com, you can find me there. It's also in my bios on social media, but letsengage.com. And again, you can totally reach out, and if you want me to come somewhere, if you want to see what I'm up to, just follow me there.
Yeah. So thank you so much again, Jake. For the folks that are listening, tap into letsengage.com. If you want to connect with Jake, do so. There's also thousands of other athletes on the platform. And it's not just speaking engagements, it's experiential events, brand opportunities as well. It's such a great platform. I recently just got on it. We're going to have all Jake's information in the show notes. And as you guys know, we do our takeaways. So this is what I was able to learn from Jake, work ethic. You got to have a 24/7 work ethic. There's going to be adversity that hits your way, but the way you handle it is through work ethic, and obviously resilience. Whether it's, being blind or, having unfortunate adversity that comes your way, you got to be resilient and have faith in something greater in your life is going to come. Connections, Jake has been able to use his connections at USC in business, playing at a top level high school program to lead to wonderful opportunities from a business perspective and, overall relationship and life perspective as well. Asking. I thought this was really good. I loved how Jake talked about, don't be afraid to ask. As athletes, we have that macho mentality. We can do it all on ourselves. But when you ask and build a team around you, a lot more can get done. And then to close us out, control. Whether it's, using Engage as a platform or, building your own business, the ability to have control and more leverage, that means a lot. And when it comes to finances, the better you control your finances, the more stability and clarity you have when it comes to your money management. And then lastly, it's this most simplest thing to do, but sometimes it's the hardest. Just simply budget. And then having someone that can hold you accountable, whether it's one of your family members, someone on your financial team, whoever, having someone to hold you accountable is really big. So once again, Jake, thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you leave a review, subscribe, and, follow Jake.
Thank you, Moby. I have to do it. Fight on.
Oh, okay. Do it. Fight on. I'm gonna let you have it. I might do an A clap to close it, but yeah, do it. Do what you gotta do. Okay, perfect.
All right, man. Well, that was super fun. Thank you.